Have you ever seen something that you felt you should not have seen? Were you in the wrong place at the wrong time and felt you were the victim of something much bigger than yourself? It all started with a childish and impulsive act on my part. We were supposed to have a good time that vacation day. We were going to be in the beach with my wife and kids. But my wife and I got into an argument over a family problem that we didn't even have to mention during the vacation. And in an act of anger, I walked down to the beach by myself. But not the beach you know, full of people and voices of joy, but to the most deserted part of the beach, the part that was covered by huge caves that were not family-friendly, because children can get hurt. After a break, I would return to spend the day with my family. But for the moment, I just wanted to get away from everyone and rest for a while. It was only 8 o'clock in the morning, and the day was quite cold and cloudy. Definitely not a day for the beach. But I didn't care. I put my feet on the sand and felt a little drizzle falling on me. I stood against a huge rock, where a small roof was formed to protect me from the rain, and watched as the small drops hit the sea. I sat down and relaxed, stared at the immense sea in front of me. I relaxed and closed my eyes. I was still very sleepy. I just wanted to sleep a little more. Paused the story for a few seconds with a black screen. When I woke up, I heard the rain falling on the beach. I could see the tide rising and my feet getting wet, but that was not what caught my attention. Surprised, I witnessed a person coming out of the sea and walking towards me. That person was not on the beach. He was not in the grottos or on the shore. That person was coming from the bottom of the sea. He had started as a lump coming out of the water, but as he came ashore, his body became more and more noticeable. Regardless of the waves hitting him, his pace was steady and precise, and he was getting closer and closer to me. I wanted to run towards my van, but he was coming from that side and was already too close. I ran to the opposite side where he was, hiding behind all the rocks. Peeking out, I could see the being walking towards me slowly. The closer he got, the more I realized the mistake I was making. Its body was huge. The strange being had no facial hair, and its bluish skin was covered with scales. But the strangest thing was that it had no face. He looked exactly like a human being, but it had no eyes or mouth. How did he know where I was? The monster kept walking in my direction. It didn't hesitate or look for me. It knew perfectly where I was and was about to catch up. I hadn't realized it, but by hiding in the rocks, I had locked myself in. As the monster cornered me, I could see its muscles tighten. Whatever it had in front of it, it was ready to attack me. And if it grabbed me, I had no doubt it would not let me go. I thought about trying to dodge the huge monster. I thought about running past him and running as fast as I could to my truck, but I was sure he would catch up with me. Instead, I grabbed a huge stick I had next to me, and in a fighting stance, waited for him. When I had him in front of me, I tried to hit him as hard as I could. But with one hand he parried the blow, and with the other, he grabbed me by the neck and slammed me against the rock. My body hurt a lot. I felt like I might have broken a bone, and it was hard to breathe. As I was recovering, he kept coming towards me and grabbed my neck again, then threw me into the sea. I was very dizzy, but I managed to gather my strength to get up and run. I thought I could escape from him, but this being moved very easily in the water, and in a matter of seconds, he caught up with me again. As soon as he grabbed me, he gave me a tight hug and started walking. I could tell he had a lot of strength, but what terrified me the most was that even though he was holding me with great ease, he was not using all his strength. What's more, I could even tell that he was holding back. At that moment, I understood what was happening. Whatever this being was, it wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to take me underwater. This was not a violent being that wasn't thinking. It was hunting. I tried to kick as hard as I could, but nothing was working. I also tried to hit it, but my hands were trapped in its embrace. I had only one chance left to escape, and I had to take it. I pushed my body forward, and with all my strength, I bit him right on the neck. His skin was very thick and slippery, but the bite was strong enough to make him stagger. if only for a few seconds. At that moment, I managed to free myself and get a little distance, but I was already far enough into the water, so I was running very slowly, and he was running at full speed. Filled with rage, the humanoid grabbed my head from behind and plunged it against the ground of the shore. With much more force than before, he began to drag it along the ground. That was easily the worst moment of my life. Not only was I drowning, but my face was being dragged all over the rocks on the shore, cutting into every inch of it. This was no longer a question of hunting me. This being was angry. Almost effortlessly, the monster lifted me up by my hair and in midair, gave me a punch in the face that sent me flying several meters backwards. For a few minutes, I forgot about the monster, my family, everything. All I could think about was the intense and insufferable pain that ran through my body. My nose was broken and my face cramped. I made every effort to get up and keep running. The terrifying being kept walking as if nothing had happened. I made it to the van, and as soon as I got in, I realized how close the being was. He was no longer walking, he was running. The van wouldn't start. And crying, I watched as he got closer and closer. In my last attempt, when he was right beside me, the van started, and I accelerated as fast as I could. The engine was roaring as loud as it could, but the van only advanced a few meters and stopped. The monster was grabbing it from the back so hard that the van was totally immobilized. In response, I did the only thing I could think of at the time. I put the van in reverse and hit the monster, causing it to lose stability for a moment, which I took advantage of to accelerate and escape. As the van moved forward, I watched in the rearview mirror as the monster fell further and further behind, until I lost sight of it. When I got home, I hugged my family in tears. I never talked about it, never told them what I saw. Maybe someday I will, but I'm not ready to. I don't know what that being was, and I don't need to know. Some things are better left at the bottom of the sea. Honeymoon. The story I am about to tell you may seem rather improbable, but rest assured that if my story were not hard to believe, I would not be alive. It all started that fateful Saturday. My wife and I had just gotten married and decided to start our honeymoon. This was my first day of honeymoon with her, and we were going to a paradise island on a beautiful cruise ship. The ship was really beautiful. We spent the first few hours of the day exploring it, looking it up and down. There was food everywhere. People were in a vacation mood and very friendly, and best of all, we were in the same mood. Once we got into our room, we were in awe. I admit that I could never have afforded such a luxury, but I wanted our honeymoon to be perfect, so we saved for a long time to be here. Everything had to be perfect, and up to that point, it really was. Everything was going well until a strong storm hit the cruise ship with full force. The cruise ship was going back and forth. Furniture and pictures were falling down. Children were crying, and some parents with seasickness were vomiting so much that they could not calm them down. The captain gathered us in the main salon to give us some tranquility. He told us that these things usually happen, and it usually feels a lot worse than it really is. He told us that we were out of danger, and that the ship could handle anything. The captain seemed really very convincing, and for a moment, he managed to calm the whole crew down. Unlike the rest, I was not calm, although the captain seemed very calm. The people with him were trying to hide their faces. They were terrified and confused. Clearly, this storm was something much worse than what they were used to facing. The rain stopped after a few minutes, but the cruise ship lost its course. The captain told us that we would resume our normal course immediately. In the meantime, we should go take a nap. At first, I thought no one would do it, but apparently I was the only one who had noticed the crew's fear, as they all agreed and started to leave slowly. Out of nowhere, a loud bang on the bottom of the ship alerted everyone. The ship's workers went down to see what was happening, and in a few seconds, the screams began. Violent screams, full of pain and panic, covered every meter of the cruise ship. Then, silence. Not even the captain could hide his nerves in confusion at what was happening. After being silent for a few seconds, not knowing what to say, he just said that they would take care of the problem, but that we should lock ourselves in our rooms. People were no longer calm. From there, the nightmare began. We ran to our room, and as the captain told us, we locked ourselves in. I was trying to convince my wife that everything was fine, that it was probably nothing, and that they were probably fixing it right now. I told her that in a matter of hours we would be on the island, and all this would remain in the memory, as part of a crazy honeymoon. She seemed to calm down, but she was still terrified. In a matter of minutes, the lights went out and the screams multiplied. When we thought of leaving the room, it was too late. The screams were getting closer and closer. What was it that was killing all the passengers? The noise came from below. Did a submarine hit us? Suddenly, my bedroom door exploded. My wife and I were hiding under the bed, and when we saw what came in, it was a miracle we didn't scream. A strange being was standing in front of us. It looked like an amphibian, like some kind of frog. Its claws were huge, and somehow it could stand on two legs, walking around and examining everything with its terrifying green eyes. The strange animal began to search our room, centimeter by centimeter. Somehow, it knew we were here. Maybe it could smell us, maybe it heard us. Whatever the case, we both knew we were in danger. We both tried to stay as still as possible while the strange being searched the room. It was getting closer and closer. I had to do something as fast as possible, or it would surely find us. The being took a few more steps towards our hiding place. I thought about jumping towards it and trying to attack it any way I could. Inside, I knew it was a ridiculous idea, but what else could I do? Wait for it to kill us all? I was gathering my energy to jump and attack him, and when I was ready to do it, something stopped me and pulled me back. It was my wife. Even though she couldn't speak, she looked at me with an incriminating face, indicating that I didn't have to go. I took a deep breath, trusting her, and seeing her face was when I realized that she didn't really have a plan. She just didn't want me to die for her. We both clenched our hands as the horrible being approached until something saved us. A man ran by, desperate, screaming that the ship was sinking. As he passed our room to alert us, he saw the amphibian and started to run. The amphibian ran after him. We had been saved. We thought about staying hidden until the monster left, but we began to feel water brushing against our toes. The ship was really flooding. We took a chance and ran out of the room, and when I turned around to look at it, it looked back at me. While doing so, it was eating the man. The victim was being swallowed without being chewed, as if he was entering a black hole. The legs kicked desperately until suddenly they stopped moving and ended up entering the amphibian's mouth. Once it had devoured its prey, the creature began to run toward us. It was very fast, and the big head start we had wasn't enough. In an act of desperation, I grabbed a decorative painting and used it to attack the monster and buy some time. To my surprise, the monster dodged me without any difficulty. At that moment, I realized that I was about to die, exposed before this horrendous and dangerous being. But to my surprise, something much worse happened. The monster ignored me and kept running. He never chased me. He wanted my wife. My wife made it to the door, but before she could close it, the monster reached in. She used all her strength to try to close it, but it was obvious that she was giving in to the horrendous being. As the monster was about to open the door, I hit it using the frame with all my strength. Being distracted, it didn't dodge my blow, and I managed to stun it for a few seconds, which I used to go to my wife and closed the door before it reached us. I told my wife to run, that I would stay and lock the door, and if either of us let go, we would both die. She understood it and ran desperately, and when she got far enough away, I let go of the door and started running. This time I had no chance. The monster was too close and would catch up with me. I started to escape through the side of the huge cruiser, and when I was about to be the next victim of the amphibian, I jumped into the water praying it wouldn't catch me. When I fell into the water, there was no trace of the monster near me, so I breathed a sigh of relief. There was no way it can catch my wife. Near me was a person with a life jacket. The man might have been protected from drowning, but he had a huge wound that cost him his life. I took the life jacket and looked up as a helicopter was arriving above me. I couldn't see well, but I recognized my wife inside the helicopter. After that, I swam away as I watched the cruiser sink. I didn't want to be near that monster when it happened. A few hours later, I had a stroke of luck, and a small boat found me and picked me up. When I got ashore, I tried every way I could to contact my wife, but to no avail. Neither she nor any of the other passengers showed up again. No one ever reported what happened to that cruise ship. It was as if it never existed. When I tried to raise my voice, I only received mockery and some insults on the internet. But outside of them, I began to see how some people were watching me. They didn't even bother to hide. It was as if they wanted me to know they were watching me. I don't know who these people are or what will happen to me in the future. I just want to find my wife and forget what happened with that terrifying monster. But every time I see it more difficult. I really don't think I'll ever see her again. I don't even think those people watching me will leave overnight. I am very afraid, and I know that the worst is yet to come. All I can ask is that it happens as quickly as possible and that this nightmare ends. A nightmare that started on the day that should have been the happiest day of my life.